Hey guys, welcome to the Paint with Lovejoy website. This is the place for first-time and beginners to get comfortable with the painting process. If you have never painted, I am definitely the teacher for you. I will give you permission to play, to create with your hands, and I do consider this adult kindergarten, where you get to make memories with yourself or with loved ones. And you will notice that creative time is something that you will reference for the rest of your life. I do encourage you to send me photos of your paintings. And when you're done with my YouTube videos, please check out my Paint Your Pet course for even more in-depth and kind of my signature class. It's a lot of fun. Before we get started, I want to say thank you for being you. And I also want to give you permission to play today. I'm going to encourage that you take a lot of progress photos, and I do recommend that you turn off your distractions. Put your phone on mute. Please know that mistakes will happen. We call them happy accidents. And I'm going to encourage you to breathe throughout the painting process. Here are your recommended supplies and the colors for this particular video. This video also has a traceable, a line drawing at the beginning, and you can either purchase the traceable and transfer, or you could pause the video and draw it freehand, whichever you feel comfortable doing. Again, progress photos are important. And I'm going to encourage that you pause and play the video as much as you need and rewatch anything that you want. Now let's go ahead and get started painting. All right, guys, so take your first progress photo. We're going to start with the background, and we're going to kind of do this in sections, and we will do the background twice. So we're starting with the white and the green, and I want you to just follow along and just kind of mimic where I'm placing these lines in this color, and mimic that to the best of your ability on the canvas. Now, I do recommend that you apply your paint thicker. That way, you get a little bit better coverage. It's going to be easier to blend, and then it kind of compensates and covers all the texture of the canvas. So if you can see the texture of the canvas, apply your paint thicker. It is okay to completely play with different color variations. You do not have to match what I'm doing on the video. If you want to do shades of purple and blue here, please feel free to just switch out those colors and then send me a picture of what you paint. But yeah, full permission to get creative, use this as a base and make it your own and change it. So here I added a little bit more green to the perimeter, and that's what I call perimeter mixing. So I took that yellow or the white and green and then added more green to go 2 shades darker. So as we do this with this series, I am trying to push you a little bit more to do perimeter mixing. And the more that you mix your colors, the more you retain that information. So do remember to breathe. A lot of times we are holding our breath when we're doing something for the first time. And here you can see that I grabbed that slightly darker shade of green. And again, we're just kind of filling in different sections of the background. Now you do have full permission to paint messy. I actually encourage that. This is a safe space to be messy and creative and basically to not have to be perfect. You have plenty of other areas in your life that perfection is expected. This is not one of those places. So again, just permission to play, escape your reality for a little bit, and just enjoy the process of filling up and transforming this blank canvas surface. So again, filling in those edges, I am using student grade paint, so that's why we're going to do 2 layers. And with a second layer, it just gives us a more opaque coverage. So here we are doing the perimeter mixing again, adding a little bit of black to my green to go a little bit darker. And I'm going to put this selectively in a few areas. And basically this is going to be a little bit of the shadow underneath the Lotus Blossom. Now, I do recommend taking a progress photo again when you're done with this section. And use that light pressure. And again, just notice where I place the darker section. And you can pause the video as much as you need to in any of my paintings. And even feel free, go back and replay it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And just take notice, I did put a little bit of a shadow element in that bottom right-hand corner. And I'm just going back through and smoothing this, but we will be doing round two, second layer on top of this. All right, so now we're gonna go back to that green and black and be sparing with the amount of black. A little bit of black will go a long way. And you can see here, I'm still doing that perimeter mixing, but both colors are pretty dark. So it's kind of hard to see. You'll see a little bit more here. We're going pretty dark here, but with like a hint of green. And again, we're gonna section off this left-hand side of the canvas, and then we'll get a little bit lighter as we get towards the right-hand side of the canvas. Now, as we fill this area in and you come close to the Lotus Blossom, please feel free to switch down to the pointy brush for a little bit more control. And if you need to, rotate the canvas, so that way it's a little bit easier. And every time that you pause the video, I want you to just observe the shapes that I make with particular colors and just kind of mimic that to the best of your ability. Again, you do not have to match my video. This is nothing to be perfect. This is just a simple guideline for you to follow with permission to change things. All right, here I am. I'm going to switch over to the pointy brush to make it a little bit easier as I come closer to the flower petals. And again, as you're playing with either the pointy brush or the flat brush, play with your pressure, play with your breathing. If you're shaky, exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas. Make sure you take your progress photo, but you're doing great. So just follow it along with the easy steps of this tutorial. All right, so you're gonna wanna clean your brush. We're gonna move back to green and yellow. Actually, for the first time, green and yellow. We've done green and white. And this is gonna be a little bit warmer by adding the yellow to it, so we can get a little closer to springish green, a little bit warmer. And again, same thing. I'm just going to section off that background a little bit. And then when I get close to the petals, I'll be moving over to the pointy brush for more control. Again, thanks for taking time out of your day to paint and get creative and even just hang out with me for a little bit. I'm honored when I get to be a part of my students' day and help them get creative. All right, and here, especially with the yellow and the green, this is where you can see a lot of the transparency of my paint. You can see that my brush strokes are showing up. Um, so for you, if you have kind of the same thing that I'm dealing with, that's why we'll do the second layer. But I also want you to play with your pressure of your brush. Notice that light pressure creates a little bit smoother line. More pressure creates a bit more of those painterly brush strokes that will show up. Both are acceptable, and both are really just kind of a personal choice of what you like and what your style is. All right, so again, just kind of play with your pressure of your brush, fill in that space around the flower. We've got 2 more sections that we'll do in the background. Then we'll let this dry, and then we'll actually redo the background a second time. Now, if you've actually are using thicker, more opaque paint right now, you can skip when we do the second layer, and I'll repeat that again when we get to that section. So here, just kind of filling in some of those brush strokes, filling in the space, trying to apply the paint a little bit thicker, slightly successful, but like I said, still gonna do that second layer. All right, so we're gonna get this last little section, that top, actually both corners, the top right corner and then the bottom left corner. All right, so we're gonna go back to the green and black for that top right corner, filling in the remaining space, and then we'll do a bit more of a spring green, like leaf color for that bottom left corner. So again, this top corner is a little bit more green and black, a little closer to the green side. And where the transition of these two colors meet, that darker, my paint is still wet. We will do this in the second round, but I recommend just kind of moving your brush little X marks back and forth to kind of soften that line. Do a little bit of blending in the background. If your paint's already dry for that section, don't stress about it. We will do this in round 2, and we'll soften that transition even more. So now I'm just kind of going back, playing with it again. I'm still trying to get a little bit thicker paint on there. Um, I think at this point I did give in and go, okay, I'm just going to do another layer. So sometimes you do have to adjust based on the tools that you have. And for those of you that do buy the really, really cheap paint, sometimes you might have to do 3, 4, and 5 layers on top of it. So adjust for what you need with the tools that you have. So now I'm going back to the yellow green, a little bit more heavy handed on the yellow because I want this to be lighter. And it's almost as if this is a leaf on the water surface, or even just a reflection of the greens from above. But I do want this one to be a little bit more on the yellow green side. And then you can grab that green, slapped a little bit on there, and then light pressure kind of blend that in. Again, we will do this a second time. So pause your video, take your progress shot. I am going to recommend that you let this dry, and then we're going to move into the second layer. And again, this second layer will be more opaque and a little thicker. But if you already used really thick paint, nice opaque coverage, and you don't need a second layer, skip this and then just pick up when I start painting the flower. So we're going to redo all those steps we just did. So going back to the white and the green, and again, this is just good for your brain to make this color multiple times, to make all your colors multiple times. So again, we're just going to go right through the process, grabbing that white and green, filling it in. And even on this, it's okay to apply your paint a little bit thicker. And if you happen to overlap where your flower is, because it's going to be lighter, it's going to be white flower, I recommend that you wipe off any pigment that might get into the flower. Now we're going to grab that direct green. Here we go. Again, putting it on there pretty thick. We're going to place that on there, and then we will go to our green and black and do the shadow. Now, if your green is a different shade than mine, totally okay. Embrace for wherever you are at on today's painting and whatever tools that you are using and supplies that you have at home. Again, as we do this round 2, play with your brush pressure. That smooth, light pressure creates the smoother brush strokes. More pressure creates a little bit more painterly brush stroke. So again, just play with it. You're getting comfortable with this. We've got a little bit of muscle memory happening each time that you paint. All right, so here I'm going to grab a little bit of the black. I did move down to a smaller brush. And we're going to put that shadow underneath the Lotus Blossom again. And I do realize this is kind of dark on dark. So again, just pause the video. If you need to, take a screenshot and you can zoom in a little bit closer to see a little bit more of the details if you need to. But otherwise, I highly recommend that you trust your instinct. So add the shadow underneath your flower to your liking. And as you're looking at your painting, remember to get out of your chair and look at your painting from across the room. This is the normal viewing distance, and it's nice to kind of do that while you're in the creative process. So now back to the flat brush, back to the green and black paint. And again, still applying it pretty thick up here. So that way when I do the yellow green, do some more blending and transition colors. And already just the areas that we have redone or done the second layer on already have a nice opaque feeling. Hopefully you are seeing that on your painting as well. And again, move down to the pointy brush if needed for some of those tighter spaces around the flower. And then we're also going to go ahead and just apply that green-black mixture to that top left-hand corner. You're doing great. I do recommend to all my students, if you have anything that stressed you out and frustrated you this week, put it into your painting. Lap your brush on the canvas, get those feelings out. So now we're going to move to the green and yellow, or yellow and green, however you want to say it. Applying that middle section, and then because the green and black is still wet, I'm going to soften that transition and move my brush over the top of where the two colors meet. We'll be doing that momentarily. Nice. Remember to breathe. You're an adult kindergartner. You're having fun. You're escaping your reality for a little bit. All right, so here I'm doing that transition color, or where the transition actually meets. So bringing, as I move my brush on top of there and get in between the petals of the flower. There we go. We're going to smooth out some of this transition. Nice. So feel free to play with those transitions from where it's darker to the lighter shades of green. Play with that brush pressure. I like to do little X marks back and forth. It's a nice way to kind of pull pigment from each side and do a little bit of blending. All right, so now we're going to go to yellow, add a tiny amount of green, again, heavier on the yellow side for this leaf in the bottom corner. And then we'll do the same thing. Grab that bit of green, slap it on there, and then light pressure, just kind of softly pull that green into the yellow. And it doesn't have to mix entirely. Have fun with it. Take your progress photo. And this, I do want you to let your painting dry, take a break, look at your painting from across the room, notice how you feel. Hopefully you're a little more relaxed and having fun. And I'm going to talk about my Paint Your Pet class, and then we'll get back into this painting. So do check out my Paint Your Pet course. I will not make you paint as fast as this current video, but I will teach you the realistic and pop art style in my classes. It's a lot of fun. I do have in-person and online classes. And check out the pets. Look at how awesome all my students did, getting such good likenesses, and look at how proud those pets are. They are so happy of their parents. So when you paint something that you love, it is so much more enjoyable, and we all love our pets. If you've never painted, I am the perfect teacher for you to start with. And I do teach in-person workshops, and I have this available online. So hopefully something for everybody. Whether it's online or in person, my steps are very easy and logical to follow. And you can paint your pet or favorite animal. You will impress your pet and yourself. And it's a lot of fun. So Paint Your Pet course when you're ready. Check out that discount code. Now let's get back into your painting. So look at your painting again from across the room. Hopefully you are a little more impressed with yourself than you may have thought earlier. And then we're going to move into the flower and work on our brush control and subtle blending. All right, so we're going to use the pointy brush, and we're doing white with a minuscule, a super, super tiny amount of purple. You can barely tell that it's a lavender. So your challenge right now is to make as light white as lavender as possible. And we're going to fill in these front 3 petals, and we are going to go kind of petal by petal, or little chunks, little sections of the petal. I am applying this color over the traceable line. There we go. And I want you to take your time with this. It's not a race. There's no prize for being the first one that finishes, because whether you're painting with somebody else, no one's going to know how quickly you finish. So again, just have fun. So we've got the super, super, super light lavender on these 3 petals. Now I grabbed a touch of purple, and at each of those tips, I'm going to start my brush at the tip, and then with light pressure, pull it down into that petal. And we're going to do that for all 3 of these petals. And again, it's just a little hint that we have a little deeper color on the tips of the petals compared to the base as it pulls through. Exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas, and that's going to help steady out your hand. And again, if your petals end up being a bright purple or different colors, that's okay. Embrace your painting for where you're at today. And again, it does not have to match exactly as the video. So I'm going back to the white with a tiny, tiny, minuscule amount of purple. And we're going to move on to the next petals and recreate this process. So with that super light purple, we're going to fill in a few more petals, 2 or 3 petals. And again, we're going over those traceable lines. And when we get to those back petals, we will overlap the background just a little bit to clean up the edge of those petals. Again, take your time, pause the video as much as you need to, take that screenshot and zoom in a little bit closer if you need to. So here, take a notice where I put that light purple in just the bottom kind of corner of those two petals, and then I grabbed white to fill in the rest of the space and then blend it in. This is very, very subtle. And by doing this, that makes that first initial super light lavender even lighter. So again, that's your challenge for today's painting is the subtle color shift. So now we're taking that direct purple, again, going back to the tip and pulling that through, kind of mimicking the shape or the direction that the petal is going. Same thing for these bottom two petals. We're going a little bit darker. We're not going to blend as much because we can see a different perspective on these petals. There we go. Again, exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas. Take your progress photos. You're doing great. So we're going to go back to that super, super light purple and move on to the next petals. Now, this is a painting that you could do again in 6 months or a year after you've been doing other paintings, and you will see how much you've grown or how much more comfortable you have become with your tools when you paint this again. Right now, it's a lot to take in, but after you paint this and then you go paint some more paintings and you come back and do this again, you'll see how much you've grown. And sometimes that's really something we need to do and understand about ourselves. And this is a nice way to do that. So now moving back to that purple, same thing, just putting a little bit on the tips of these petals and then with light pressure pulling it into your base color. You're doing great. You are strengthening your power of observation as you watch where I place some of these colors and then mimic that on your canvas. Again, not going for perfection. So now grabbing the white. I'm not even going to try to do the light purple, but we're going to get those petals in the back. And this is where I'm overlapping the background just a little bit to clean up the shape of those petals. And again, I'm pretty much using the direct white, and then we'll put a few little highlights in there. This was my reference photo was a white lotus blossom with a little hint of purple and then a tiny hint of some pink in there. Again, use light pressure. If you're finding that you're starting to get extra sloppy and tired and irritated, take a break. Walk away from your painting for a little bit, but please make sure you come back to your painting and finish it. So again, taking notice of where your emotional context is, how you're feeling, what your tools are. There's a lot of variables and adjustments that we do make in the creative realm, but they are very personalized. You get to do what is best for you. All right, so we're still with the white. We, at this point, have all those back petals, the ends, the tips of those back petals with white paint on them, filled in. We'll do a little bit of shading in a moment. You're doing great. Right. This is taking shape nicely, and this is, like I said, a very tight and controlled painting, especially for the flower. So now with that light pressure, a little bit of purple, we're doing starting at the tip, but also just kind of going around the perimeter of some of these petals, just adding a little hint of a shadow. You don't have to do it to every single petal, but again, just breaking up some of that white space with a little hint of color back there. This is one that I would recommend pause the video, take that screenshot and zoom in a little bit closer and you can see some of the extreme subtle color differences here. All right, so now we're going to switch colors, white with a smidge, tiny, minuscule amount of red for a super, super light pink. And we're basically recreating that same formula with this super, super light pink. We're going to fill in these petals. Then we're going to take a little bit more red or a little bit darker red. And at the tip, pull that in to kind of the middle of the petal through the base paint color. Nice. This is getting you to be very much in the moment. This is strengthening your power of observation. This is strengthening your muscle memory and your muscle control in your hands. All good things to be doing. All good skills. to perfect, really. Just trying to come up with a better word. Literally, you're just getting more comfortable with these skills and your painting tool. All right, so we have our final 3 petals filled in with that super, super light pink. Now we're grabbing a little bit more red, going from the tip of the petal and then kind of pulling it forward. And again, the red's pretty powerful, so a minuscule amount goes a long way just to give us little hints of variation. Excellent. And if you end up maybe doing 2 brush strokes and you're like, that's actually not dark enough, adjust. Go back and add more pigment to make it a little bit darker. So take your progress photo. I think we've just got one more thing left to do, this stem. Yep. So we're going to do purple and green. There we go. Again, another dark color with the purple and green. Helps unify the palette since we've got both those colors in there. And I am just doing that stem. I am using the pointy brush and kind of a medium pressure and imagining that that stem is either going into the water right there or kind of hiding behind a leaf, whatever you want to say it's doing. All right, so we're gonna grab a little bit of yellow. We have some little, totally forgot what that part of the flower is called. The stamen or the pistils, can't remember which. Please somebody leave a comment because I think I asked it on another flower question. So using the pointy brush, and these are almost like little fingers coming out of the center of the flower. So these are little dash marks that I'm making. I'm trying not to overlap those front 3 petals, those first 3 ones that we worked on, and just bringing that yellow into the edge of that petal. Again, this does not have to be perfect, and if you do not like it, you do not have to add it. You take a tiny bit of red just to give a little bit of breaking up the color. So red with just a little smidge of the yellow. And we're going to go back and just break up this yellow space. So again, just kind of going on the tips or right next to it. Very hard to see on the video. It does show up a little bit better in person on the actual painting. So take a screenshot and zoom into this if needed. Great job today. I am very proud of you. Tackled a lot of really small, detailed stuff. You did awesome. Please send me pictures of what you paint. You can tag me on social media or email them. And then definitely check out my Paint Your Pet course when you're ready to step up your skills. Thanks again for painting.